Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
This is Alicia Debrell from Insight Media. Today's guest is Reed Goossens, a #1 international bestselling author for his book, Investing in the U.S., The Ultimate Guide to U.S. Real Estate. Reed is currently and quickly becoming one of the top experts in the real estate investment world. Reed has an interesting story and a really interesting background, and I'm excited to have him on the show. Hi, Reed. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Alicia. Thank you so much for having me on the show today.
No, I'm excited. So tell me a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so I first moved, for everyone who's listening to the show, they probably realize I have a bit of an accent, and I'm not from this country originally. I'm from down under. I'm from Australia, and I actually moved to the United States back in 2012, and I moved here to pursue two things in life, two loves, I should say, and that was the love of my then girlfriend, now wife, Erica. She's an American girl. And also to pursue my career in structural engineering. That's what I did. That's what I went to school for. And I moved out here to be an expat, just to live abroad, live in the Big Apple in New York City. But really quickly, when I first moved to the United States, I found out that the real estate investing space here is pretty freaking awesome. So I got started in that really quickly. And over the last 7 or 8 years, I've actually developed my own company. And I'm sure we'll get into how I did that. But I really moved to the United States. I quit my job in Australia and moved here to chase a dream. So, yeah.
I love it. So what made you pick real estate?
Yeah, so real estate came from a desire back in, I guess the whole thing of being an entrepreneur was I knew that I had more to give in life. And I back in 2009, prior to leaving Australia and coming to the United States, I was sitting in my cubicle as an engineer, thinking to myself, I can't be living this life for the next 40 years. I've got to do more with my life. I felt like a sort of a star athlete sitting on the sidelines watching my life go by. And I picked up the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad back in 2009, so a decade ago. And that book really opened my eyes to what an entrepreneur is and was, and the whole idea of that I needed to take control of my most valuable asset, which is my time. And so that was really the spark that ignited within me, the hunger to go out there and become my own boss. And through my different educational finding out what I could do, it was real estate. I chose real estate. And so after reading that book in 2009, I started self-educating in Australia. Before then, I quit my job and said, hey, I still want to move abroad. And I quit my job and came all the way to the Big Apple. I didn't have a job in America. I had to get a visa. I didn't have established network. I had no family or friends, and I had very limited funds. But I knew I had a dream and a passion to live in America, and that's what I made it happen. And over a period of the next 7 years, I've created my own business, and it's been a pretty freaking awesome journey along the way.
I love it. I love it. And coming from Australia to here is definitely a big challenge, because just the audience, I don't know if they know, I used to live there, and it's a different mentality there than it is here. People are a lot more laid back. They're not in New York and in the US. You're going to find more hustlers and more people who are going to more aggressive in the entrepreneurial aspect. So I think that's really cool that you were able to turn your mentality where you grew up and bring that here and still be able to be successful. That's hard to do.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to do, but also the ability, or Australians have this sort of innate sense of we need to go out and explore the world, and we're always encouraged to do that. So I'm sure a lot of people listening to this show probably have their token Australian friend, but yeah, we're everywhere around the world. But when I first moved to the United States, it was a culture shock, and particularly moving to New York City. It's sort of like the biggest city in the world, and it was like taking on information out of a fire hose. And I know when I first got fresh off the boat, I started attending local real estate investment clubs and information nights, and I didn't even know what credit score was. I didn't even know what an LLC was, and so all these things I had to learn. And over a period of time, I was able to learn those, and then go out and execute and buy my first deal. So yeah.
Okay, so tell me a little bit more about your #1 international best-selling book. What made you want to write it?
Yeah, well, the reason I wanted to, so I should start by saying when I first moved to the United States, I had to learn really quickly. I had to go through this journey of learning, right? I didn't know what American real estate, the lingo was here. I didn't know the legal requirements. I didn't know how to get bank accounts set up. I didn't know how to get, access to financing. But I also noticed that there was a really great, there was low barriers to entry here in the United States compared to where I was from in Australia. And there are a lot of great cash flowing opportunities back in 2012 and still today, more so than my home country. And so I started researching about different podcasts or different informational YouTube channels on the benefits of investing here for international investors in America. And there wasn't any. And so I said, well, hang on, I'm learning this process. I'm learning this way of having to invest here in the United States. I had to rejig my brain to start, understanding American lingo. Or maybe other people might, maybe other international folks might be interested in listening to it. And that's when I started my podcast back in 2013 called Investing in the US, an Aussie's Guide to US Real Estate. And in the beginning, it was a podcast where I just focused on speaking to those international folks because a lot of people were really, really wanting to invest here, like myself. And I was going through the learning process. So what better way than to show other people about what how to learn how to invest here by showing them what I was learning on a day-to-day basis. And over the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, over 200 episodes, I have pivoted that podcast into being more inclusive of both, obviously, American investors and international investors. But we talk a lot about not just real estate, but startups, businesses, and really people creating something from nothing. And that's what the show is today. And so you ask, why did I start the book? Well, the book is all the best episodes from that podcast jammed into a book with my story interwoven within those different chapters. And so I've taken the journey and put it into a book or put it into a podcast, and that podcast is then created into a book. And that's how we've got to number one, both here in the United States and internationally.
Yes, no, that was awesome. Congratulations. Yeah, your book hit number one across the board internationally in every real estate category. So that's a pretty big feat, especially from somebody coming from down under.
Exactly.
So tell me a little bit more details about your business and who you help. What kind of real estate transactions do you do?
Yeah, so me and my business partner, we focus on real estate syndication, and that is in the multifamily space. So when I say multifamily, I'm talking about large apartment buildings. We go out and buy commercial real estate, so 150 units or more. And with those, by doing that, we obviously those big, large properties, they cost a lot of money. But in the same sense, we also allow investors, outside investors, to come and partner with us on these deals, and they can benefit in the cash flow and the appreciation and all the benefits of owning real estate, but they don't have to lift a finger. We do all the hard work. We find the deal, we run the deal, we underwrite the deal, we bring the financing to the table, and they just bring their investment dollars, and these folks might not have the time nor the energy to go out and find these cracking deals, as I like to say. And that's where we come in. And we, so with the investor and ourselves, we form a partnership where we can go off and take down these larger assets. And that is called real estate syndication. And for anyone out there who is interested in that, you can definitely go to my website and check it out and listen to all the episodes I've talking about real estate syndication. But it is a great way for both business owners like myself and real estate, and to partner with investors who want to get their cash working for them in the real estate sector. So, yeah.
So how many transactions have you done, and what kind of transactions do you look for?
Yeah, so for multifamily transaction, we've done 8. So we own about 1,700 units to date, nice. And that's approximately $175 million worth of real estate, and we look for value add multifamily. So where the in place rent of the property is less than what the market or the surrounding assets or surrounding competition is renting for, and so we look to go in there, look at maybe a distressed asset where there's some value that can be added. So we look for value such as, we want to make sure we go the units, for example, the cabinets, the flooring, the paint, the countertops, they might be tired, they might be dated, and we want to come in and give it a fresh look and bring the rents up to market value. We also want to look at the different amenities on site, the pool, the fitness area, the club room, the leasing center, like all those things impacted a renter's decision whether they want to rent on a property or not.
Definitely.
So we look at all those different things and more to make sure that we look at of rebranding as well, which means that if a property has a bad reputation online, we look to go and rebrand the asset, give it a new name, give it a fresh lease of life. And so we look at all those things and more to make sure that it is a value add opportunity, so we can go and generate cash flow for our investors, but also force the net operating income, the NOI, in order to force the value or the valuation of the property. And that means that investors can get a really good equity uptick or profits when we come to sell the property in 4, 5, 6 years' time. So yeah.
I love it. So basically, and the reason you're doing that is because you're buying them on like A, B properties and C, D, C properties, trying to bring them to, BA properties, correct?
Yeah, more so from bringing sort of from C to B or from B to A minus. It's not D. D's like my first property I ever did. It's in the ghetto.
We're going to talk about that one in a minute. So, okay, you've done a ton of transactions. You've got a very successful business. You've got a #1 international best-selling book. So if somebody picks up your book, what do you want them to walk away with?
I guess I want them to walk away with the ability to know that, you can go out and achieve anything in life. My story is that I quit my job in Australia. I moved halfway across the world. When I moved here, I didn't have a job. I had to find a job. I didn't have a visa to get a visa. I didn't have a network here. I didn't go to school here. I had very limited cash. But what I did have was the ability to back myself. And that is an ability that a lot of people underestimate. And they think that they get into this way of thinking. They get these blinkers on in life, and they think, oh, well, I'm in this career, and I can only do so much, and I've got a mortgage, and I've got kids, and I can't break the shackles of working for someone else. But they want that financial freedom and time because they want to have more times with their kids, or more time with their family, or more time to travel the world. And so what I want people to take away from the book is that if I, Reed Goossens, can move halfway across the world and achieve all this financial freedom, start a business, and I started with nothing, then so can the average American. And it's really about going out and backing your decisions, that anything is possible in life, but you've got to believe that it's possible before, taking that first step. So yeah, that's probably the #1 thing I want everyone to take away from the book.
On a side note, were you scared when you came over here?
Oh, sure. If you read the first chapter, it's all about my nerves at the airport, leaving Australia, going, geez, am I making the right decision? And I know as of myself, I like uncertainty in my life, and a lot of people don't, and I get that. But hopefully people can be inspired by knowing that if you focus on just opening that first door, and which for me was just moving to the United States, that was the first door. The rest is going to be awesome because you've taken that step. And it's that for me, it's the fear of regret, right? And I don't want to wake up when I'm 60 or 70 years of age and go, geez, I wish I'd given that a go back in the day. Mm-hmm. I know that by changing my life and moving to the United States, it was going to change my story. It was going to change my actual life for the better. And it has. And I, look back after living here for 7 years, and I can't believe that I've been able to achieve all this. And I just know the next 10 years are going to be freaking awesome as well. So, it's really about taking life by the horns and taking control of it.
Okay. Well, I'm going to back up a little bit. We're going to talk about, I want to know what was one of your biggest mistakes that you made in the real estate world, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, so my first ever property I purchased. When I first moved to the United States, I had already been educating myself in Australia, moved here, and I think within 2 weeks of being fresh off the boat, I was at my first real estate networking event in Manhattan, in New York City, and I realized quickly that there was a lot of these little properties. I'm talking less than $50,000 were available in America in these call them Class D neighborhoods. And I had no idea about how you could buy such cheap properties because they definitely didn't exist in Australia. So I went out and bought my first property for $38,000, and it was in the ghetto. And I learned quickly what a ghetto was. And so, and I say that not, with a bit of tongue in cheek, but it was it wasn't a mistake, but there was a drive-by shooting after 6 or 8 months of me owning that asset. And it was more so that looking back on that, I didn't lose any money. I made a bit of cash along the way, but I got started. And that was the most important thing, because I was reading books and going to networking events and doing all this great stuff, but it was really analysis paralysis. And I needed to get out of my own way and get going, right? I was not going to get to deal number 10 without doing deal number 1. And so really that first deal, it was my own money. I was willing to lose it all if that was the case, but I was willing to lose it because it was my money. And not that everyone, you need to go out as investors and lose money, but I was willing to, if that was the worst thing that happened, then I was okay with. And if that's what you got to look at from the downside point of view, and I didn't lose any money. I got me started. I had a bit of an issue, a bit of a speed bump along the way with one drive-by shooting. I realized that I needed to get out of that Section 8 housing space and get out of this quote-unquote ghetto and slum and move into more of a safer investment. And I wouldn't have been able to realize that without not having those first little bumps along the way. So yeah.
So what about with, so the first property actually wasn't a syndication, it was purely yours.
Correct.
So give me an example of where you have other people's money involved and there's a mistake on, whatever the mistake may be on the property, maybe management, maybe whatever it came from. Now you have other people's money on the table.
Correct.
So how did you deal with that?
Yeah, so there's always issues, right? When you look at a deal, the old saying is, you make money when you buy, you lose money through bad property management. So we get third party property managers to manage our assets, do the day to day, get new renters in, making sure the current tenants are doing and paying their bills on time. And my role is to oversee them and make sure that they are doing their job correctly. And so really it's about, there's a lot of things that we've faced in terms of challenges with just in terms of personnel, getting these people on site, these property managers to think like us as the owners and think that, when they spend money, it obviously hits the bottom line. How do they keep pushing rents in a market where it might be softening? There's all these different things that go on, and we need to strategize as owners and as property managers, as the team. We come up with an idea of how we can overcome that, and it's all malleable, right, Alicia? It's like you keep, life will throw things at you. You just got to be able to roll with the punches. And not to date, touch on wood, there's nothing drastically being bad on my big assets.
I'll knock on wood for you for that one.
There's so many things can happen. The market softens. We come into a new recession. The renting pool in the local area the demographic just doesn't want to change. It's just still a bad demographic. And sometimes outside market conditions can force what you perceive as a good deal into being maybe more of a mediocre deal, and that can happen. But you've got to be open with your investors about it. You've got to keep them up to speed with what's happening. Transparency, month in, month out, every quarter. You want to show them financials, and so. But that's not the goal. But the goal is to be most transparent as possible, and the goal is to provide investors with the most understanding of what is going on in the asset if something's going wrong. That's if something's going wrong, and how you're going to rectify it. We had on one of our big assets, we had a huge leaking issue. Like we've spent like nearly 6 figures, I should say, chasing leaks around this property. And this is a 1980s asset. The renovations are going great. We're getting really great rental pops on our renovations. It's one of the nicest assets we own. But we got all these bloody leaks. we have to replace the pressure reducing valve, which I didn't even know existed until I got involved in this business. But I sort of equate it like buying an older car. Like you don't know if a valve in the car could go bust, right?
Gasket, anything.
Yeah, gasket, right? And that's the same thing with plumbing. Like, you can do all your due diligence on the front end. You can snake some of your plumbing lines. You can't snake all of them. But then when you get a pressure reducing valve that goes, okay, you have to chase that and find out what that was. And that caused a lot of leaks along the way over the last 3 or 4 months. But again, learning things along the way. And now we know when next time we get a bunch of leaks on a property, where's that pressure reducing valve? Let's go check that out first. Things can happen, right? And how do you foresee that happening? I can't foresee that happening, and that's life. If we could foresee things in life, Alicia, I'm sure we'd be in a different business. But it's about how it's about how I communicated to investors about what the problem was. We contacted the city, we got lawyers involved. We went through, we unearthed unturned every single stone we could, and investors were happy with what we were doing, and they understood that through the trust and transparency, they said, "Okay, that's fine. You're doing the best you can. You can't help that leaks pop up all the time from increased pressure coming from the city side of the property." So, yeah, we've had it all.
So it's okay to have mistakes as long as you deal with them the right way and you're transparent with your investors, because at the end of the day, with no investors, you have no syndication.
Exactly.
So if you had 3 pieces of advice of somebody who is just starting out to get into the syndication world, what would they be?
Yep. So 3 pieces of advice would be, first and foremost is education. You have to educate yourself about what real estate syndication is. And also you have to never stop learning. Like I'm learning all the time. Just talked about the pressure reducing valve, back in 2012 when I found out what Section 8 housing was, I'm always learning about stuff. And so education is really important. You need to start with education and make sure, as those people listening to this show who want to become real estate syndicators, they put education first and foremost. They invest in their own education. The second piece of advice is to surround yourself with people who are doing what you want to do or you aspire to be, because they are going to be able to help build your credibility. What am I talking about? I'm talking about mentors. So going out and getting yourself a mentor, a coach. You might have to pay for those things. They don't come cheap, or they don't come for free. But those are the people that will help you build that credibility in the beginning. So you can say, hey, investors, I'm partnering with my mentor. He's got all this great years of experience, or she's got all this great years of experience. We're going to go off and do deals together. And over a period of time, you'll be able to then build your own track record and then break out on your own. And that's really, really important. And the final piece of advice is about the mindset on the front end. And mindset can make or break success, in my opinion. If you go out and think that you're going to achieve financial freedom or get a real estate syndication business off the ground within 1 or 2 years, you're probably joking to yourself, and you'll probably end up quitting early when you hit that 1 or 2 year mark and you haven't achieved what you thought you were going to achieve. This business does take a long time to get off the ground. Financial freedom doesn't come overnight. It's not like flicking on a light.
I wish.
Yeah, I wish. And it takes time. So like anything, you have that proper mindset on the front end. So yes, it might take 5, 6, 7, 10 years, whatever it might take. But as long as you know that it's going to take that long, so that you don't burn yourself out and think it's going to take 2 years, and you get to the end of 2 years and go, "Oh, it hasn't happened, I'm going to quit." Well, that's why a lot of people do quit at things, is because they don't have that right mindset of the time frame it will take in order to achieve their goals on the front end. So it's really, to summarize, it's making sure you're educating yourself all the time, first and foremost, getting people in your sphere who can help educate you and raise you up and build your credibility. So a mentor. And the final thing is making sure that you have the right mindset on the front end, that this is going to take a long period of time or a extended period of time. And just look at my story. 2012.
You gotta have grit.
Yeah, got to have grit. But 2012, bought my first property. Now I'm managing $175 million worth of real estate 7 years later. In 7 years might sound like a long time when you're in the trenches, but when you stop and take a breath and look at the journey, it's actually really, really short. So,
and if you look at it also, 7 years and $170 million worth of real estate assets, that doesn't sound easy to do. So I expect it to take a minute.
Exactly. And look, I'm sitting on this show saying all the cheery stuff. There was a lot of iceberg moments where everyone's seeing the top of the iceberg right now, but there's a lot of stuff that goes on under the water that you don't see, and it takes time and, as you said, grit, rolling up the sleeves and getting into it, working 70, 80, 90-hour weeks. Things have changed in the last couple of years, but that's when you start building success, and it does take time and it does take hard work. So,
especially in the beginning. And I love your pieces of advice, because I completely agree. First of all, educating yourself on all the different pieces that are in the syndication world, but also having a coach, because there are so many different moving pieces. I know a little bit about syndication, and you need somebody to help you not only with the credibility, but you're going to have questions along the way, because you can read as many books as you want, or watch as many YouTubes or go to as many meetings as you want. You're always going to have a situation that you're going to need a coach or somebody who knows what they're doing to lean back on. to help you get past that point. And then also what you said is, not giving up and understanding on the front end that it's not going to be overnight.
Right. Exactly.
This is not DIY. I loved it. I'm sorry. It's a perfect example because they make it look so easy. Right. Like, I just made $40,000 in 3 weeks. Yay. No, that doesn't work like that.
Work like that.
No, it doesn't even in the fix and flip world either, because I've done that too.
No, it doesn't. And I've fixed and flip houses as well, and it doesn't work like that. It takes 6 to 12, 18 months nearly. So yes.
For sure. So if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, because I'm sure you do your partnering, investing, also learning, how would they go about doing that?
Yeah, so the easiest way is to jump over to my website, which is readgoossens.com. And there's 2 buttons up on the dashboard that says if you want to work with me, you can, or if you want to invest with me, you can. You can click on either of those buttons, and they'll have a bunch of form, or just some very basic questionnaire, and then it will take you to my scheduler, where we can schedule a time to jump on a call, introductory call, and we can go from there and see if it's a fit to either learn from me or partner up.
Well, I'm telling my audience right now, guys, he is fast moving. I mean, coming from Australia to here, he's a #1 international best-selling author. His book link will be here in the show notes. So if you have the opportunity to jump on his website and partner with him, I would definitely suggest you do it. He definitely knows what he's doing. Reed, it was so nice having you on the show today. Thank you so much for your time, and congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And Alicia, thank you for having me on the show and sharing my incredible journey with you guys. And I just hope some people are inspired to go out and take some action.
All right, guys, you just heard from Reed Goossens, a #1 international bestselling author for his new book, Investing in the U.S., The Ultimate Guide to U.S. Real Estate. And this is your host, Alicia Debrell from Insight Media. Until next time.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.